دنیا شده آماده یک جنگ جهانی، دنیا شده آماده یک جنگ جهانی، فریاد شیاطین جهان خار یهودی بیرون زده از حنجره شاه سعودی، بیرون زده از حنجره شاه سعودی. تکفیری و وهابی و داعش شده همدست، اینها همه زیر سر شیطان بزرگ است. تا روح خدا در دل این خاک دمیده، تا روح خدا در دل این خاک دمیده. دشمن به خودش یک شب آرام ندیده، دشمن به خودش یک شب آرام ندیده. کم کم همه جا میرسد آوای حسینی، بین المللی می شود این ارث خمینی. آرام و قراره همه کفر به هم خورد، بیداری اسلامی دنیا که رقم خورد. با ما سخن از جنگ مگو ما که نمردیم، ما پاسختان را به دم تیغ سپردیم. از منطق ما حذف شده واژه تسلیم، در شام و عراق و یمن آماده جنگی، در شام عراق و یمن آماده جنگی. بر ابر حاصل بابیل ببارد، بر قلب تل آویو که سجیل ببارد. فردا که دم حیدری از کعبه برآید، فردا که دم حیدری از کعبه برآید. دوران معاوی صفتها به سر آید، این پرچم شیعه است که بر قله دنیاست.
So there is talk right now coming out of both Washington and Riyadh about the possibility of Iran attacking Saudi Arabia. And you have people coming out, people from the think tank circle of the intellectual sphere of human existence. You have these people coming out saying things like, why would Iran attack Saudi Arabia? It's not to the advantage of Iran to attack Saudi Arabia. It's not in its interest to attack Saudi Arabia. But I can tell you right now, and I'm saying this with certainty, Iran will attack Saudi Arabia. It is inevitable. There is so much hatred for Saudi Arabia in Iran. It's ridiculous. And it's not just amongst the Islamists. People think, it's the Islamists, like it's the Muslims who are just the ones hating on Saudi Arabia. No, literally all of Iran hates Saudi Arabia. All of Iran hates Saudi Arabia. Both sections of the ideological spectrum that's within Iran hate Saudi Arabia. The secularists hate Saudi Arabia. The crazy Islamists who love the Ayatollah Khomeini, they hate Saudi Arabia. They all hate Saudi Arabia. Why? Well, for obvious reasons. The Shiites who revere the Ayatollah, they hate Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia is the center of Sunni Islam, and they will sit here. They will sit in Iran. There are people in Iran to this day who will literally cry. They will weep about how the Sunnis murdered Hussein, and they will revere Ali. They will worship Ali, who was the nephew of the Prophet Muhammad, and they believe that he was supposed to be the true successor to the Prophet, something that happened literally over 1,000 years ago. They are crying about that today. And every single year, Iranians will cry, and they will weep, and they will wail, and they will scream about how Hussein was murdered and Ali was supposed to be the original successor, and how the Sunnis are evil and they're murderers because they murdered the family of the Prophet Muhammad. Because the Sunnis say that Abu Bakr was the true successor to the prophet, but the Shiites believe that it was supposed to be the family of the prophet, and that it wasn't supposed to be Abu Bakr, who was like a strong companion to the Prophet. It was supposed to be members of Muhammad's family. So the Shiites they are believers in the idea of a bloodline. They believe that the leadership of Islam should be based upon the bloodline of the Prophet. And the Sunnis don't really hold to that. They believe that it should be based on the merit of the leader, I guess. So the Iranians today, they will weep and wail about this stuff, and they are so angry about something that happened over 1,000 years ago that they are willing to kill for it. They are willing to kill for this. That they have faith. They have hardcore, zealous, fanatical faith, unwavering faith. And it's impenetrable. And it really is quite remarkable to see these Shiites pound their chest and sing about Ali and sing about Hussein and sing about how they're going to destroy the Arabs. There are songs that are sung today in Iran about destroying the Arabs. And the secular Iranians, they hate the Arabs because Saudi Arabia is the motherland of Islam. So the Shiites, they hate Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia is the motherland of Sunni Islam, and they hate the Sunnis, and they think that Karbala, which is in Iraq, is the real Mecca of Islam. That's why during the Iranian-Iraq war, there were songs that were being sung about Karbala, Karbala, Karbala. They revere this city. That is their Mecca. That's their Vatican. But the secular atheist Iranians, they hate Saudi Arabia because it's the motherland of Islam, period. They hate religion, especially Islam. And because it was the Arabs who brought Islam into Iran. And they didn't bring Islam into Iran solely through proselytization and through teaching. They brought Islam into Iran through the sword, through violence, and there was so much killing that was done in the Arab invasion of Iran that they say that the Arabs literally had to make like a drain to drain out all the blood of the Iranians that they slaughtered. It's pretty horrendous. Plus, even in the Bible, it talks about the Arabs destroying Iran. It says in Isaiah chapter 21, "Go up, Elan, besiege, O Media," telling the Iranian people to go out and besiege the Arabs. And there is a famous song in Iran called Nohe. It's an Iranian Shia song. And let me just read to you guys some lines from this song. It says, "We hear the shouts of the world-eating Jews from the throat of the Saudi king." So the Iranians, they connect the Jews with the Arabs. It's almost like they're synonymous. Like they don't even. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty crazy. They don't separate the two, right? Or they definitely connect the two together, because Israel and Saudi Arabia, they have normalized relations within recent years, and they have bettered their relation. And the reason is because they're both scared of Iran, right? Especially the Arabs. Less the Israelis, more so the Arabs. Because the Iranians, they are superior to the Arabs militarily. Militarily, the Arabs are not in a good place when it comes to fighting Iran. There is the former head of the U.S. Central Command, General Kenneth McKenzie. He recently said this, and this was quoted in an article that was published today by DW, which is a German publication. It says here that General Kenneth McKenzie recently said in London that Iran is militarily superior to its neighbors, overmatched. So Saudi Arabia is outmatched by the Iranians. And it says here, Tehran's military has offensive capabilities that its neighbors have little to counter. Michael Duran. Now, this is very interesting because there's a guy here named Michael Duran who is of the Hudson Institute, which is a big think tank. A lot of these think tanks come out and they have their opposing views. And of course, their opinions are probably based on the beliefs of whoever's funding them. That's how a lot of these think tanks work. And it says here that Michael Duran of the Hudson Institute, this is also from the same article published by DW, believes the U.S. would hold back if Iran attacks Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is considered to be a very big ally for America in the Middle East, right? That is the official view of the United States. That's the official view of Washington, that Saudi Arabia is a very close ally. The biggest allies of America in the Middle East are Israel's number one, Turkey, I would say, is number two, and Saudi Arabia is number three. And the reason why I say Saudi Arabia is the last on the list is because the only thing that Saudi Arabia, the only reason why Saudi Arabia is important to the U.S. is because of oil. That's the only reason why. Turkey is important for military reasons, for defensive reasons, geostrategic reasons. Turkey has a very strong military force, and the reason why it has a strong military force is because NATO made sure that it was strong militarily so that it could act as a defense against Russia on the Black Sea, and also to defend the Mediterranean, the route into the Mediterranean through the Dardanelles, the Straits, against Russian advancement. And this is why Turkey is very important to the United States, to NATO in general, because Turkey is the main defense against Russia when it comes to access into the Mediterranean, and also, generally speaking, in the Black Sea. Now, Israel, of course, is number one because Israel is probably the ally that America can trust the most, and Israel is, quantity-wise, Israel is at the disadvantage because it's outnumbered. It's surrounded by countries that really don't like Israel. But Iran is the biggest threat to Israel, and also Turkey, I would say, is a big threat. Even though Turkey is at a diplomatic level with Israel, and there's a lot of business dealings between Israel and Turkey, the problem with Turkey in regards to Israel's existence is that you don't know when Turkey's going to flip, because Turkey could be friendly with Israel. It could have friendly relations with Israel, but it could flip against Israel. And you don't know. It's like a tiger. It's like a tiger you have in the circus. You know, one day you're doing a little whip trick with the tiger, and the next day you're the food, you know, and you're the entertainment now. So you don't really know if it's going to flip. So Israel has bettered its relations with Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia is terrified of Iran, and so Saudi Arabia wants to get closer with Israel basically as a way to protect itself. And there's a reason for all of this. I mean, there is a reason for all of this. And so the Iranians have always seen the Saudis and the Jews as kind of in cahoots with each other. And the fact that Israel and Saudi Arabia have normalized relations really, it further satisfies this position, this suspicion. So right now in Iran, there are all these protests that have been happening. Women, you know, I think everyone's heard this, right? Women have been burning their hijabs, and they want to overthrow the Khomeini, and they want to establish democracy. Now, are they going to succeed? More than likely not, because Ayatollah is still very popular. A lot of people still love him. So it's an uphill. It would be an uphill battle for them to try to actually do a revolution, a successful revolution. But the Iranian government is telling its citizens that these protests are being done by Saudi Arabia, that it's being done by America, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. So basically saying, listen, this is a conspiracy in which the Arabs and the Americans and the Israelis are all in cahoots against us, and they want to destroy us. It's a very effective way of doing propaganda, especially when you're talking to a population that is already suspicious of the Americans, the Arabs, and the Jews. Now, if Iran bombs Saudi Arabia, if it nukes Saudi Arabia, the Americans aren't going to do a damn thing about it. They won't do a damn thing about it. They're going to look the other way, and all of a sudden, the idea of drilling oil in America and America just becoming more and more oil independent is going to look more attractive. Why? Because, well, the Arabs are done for. See, for decades, there has been this debate in America about being energy independent. Conservatives say, drill, baby, drill. Let's drill oil. This has been a huge talking point amongst conservatives for decades. And I agree with them, by the way. I think America should just drill its own oil. I don't see the only reason why America likes to buy oil from other countries is because that's how we control them. And it's kind of like buying bananas from Guatemala. Once Guatemala starts messing with the banana business, then America sent some planes to Guatemala and bombed them. That actually happened back in the 1950s. But there's been a lot of talk about this, and liberals say, well, we should become more independent, but it should be done in a more green and environmental friendly manner. Conservatives say, to hell with that, drill oil. Well, if Saudi Arabia gets bombed, nuked, it's like, okay, then where are we going to get oil from? Saudi Arabia is done for. Well, we should just start we should become oil independent, right? And America won't do a damn thing. America does not want to get involved in a war with Iran. It would be absolutely devastating. Imagine, it would be like that. Oh man, there was a video game that came out many years ago. I forgot the name of it, but it was basically where you have American soldiers in Dubai, and Dubai has been destroyed, and you're fighting against, I think, Shiites or something. It was the most depressing game I've ever played. But it would be like Book of Eli kind of stuff. I mean, in the middle of the desert, people are dead. It would literally be fighting in a war in a post-apocalyptic place, because Saudi Arabia would become post-apocalyptic at this point, or at least dystopian. Hundreds of thousands of people dead. There would be chaos everywhere, and you would have Iranian soldiers occupying Saudi Arabia. There would be massive amounts of rapes, massacres, it would literally be Nanking, the rape of Nanking, Persian style. It would be horrifying, absolutely horrifying. And America would not want to get itself involved in any conflict like that, because America is tired of war, period. Let alone in a conflict in the middle of the desert in a post-apocalyptic society. Like, it would be complete hell. So America would not get involved at all in such a conflict. It's just going to hold back, and it's going to say our hearts and prayers are with the Arabs, and bye-bye. And this article goes on to say that James Jeffrey, former U.S. ambassador to Iraq and Turkey, agrees with this position, that America won't do jack diddly squat. It says here that although he differentiates, and he says it always depends. Now, these aren't his words, but the article is paraphrasing. It always depends on the size of the provocation. A lot depends on that. But from the perspective of the Biden administration, the most important conflict at the moment is in Ukraine. This should not be distracted, says Jeffrey. So this is a bunch of bullshit. Basically saying, hell, if Iran bombs Saudi Arabia, well, America is going to be worrying about Ukraine. Well, it's very possible that by the time Iran bombs Saudi Arabia, the war in Ukraine is going to be either completely ignored or it's going to be settled, temporarily at least. And by forgotten, I mean it's going to be a conflict going on in Europe, and America is just going to be isolated from it and watching from a distance, all the while probably providing ammunition and different forms of provisions to the Ukrainians. But this is a bullshit excuse. Even if there was no war in Ukraine and Iran nuked Saudi Arabia, America still wouldn't get involved. America does not want to be involved in a war with Iran. Now, let me tell you something about the American, okay? Take it from me, somebody who has lived in America his whole life. Americans, this is how America works. If America knows they can push you, they will. America's a bully. If America knows it can push you, it will. If America knows, or at least thinks, that you're crazy enough to use nuclear bombs against them, Americans will be very, very, very hesitant to mess with you. Perfect example, North Korea. Another example, Russia. Yes, America has provoked Russia here and there, but look at the news recently. Washington has been telling Zelensky to be open to negotiating with Russia. Why? Because America doesn't want this war to escalate to the point where Russia will use nuclear weapons. America is terrified of this, as it should be. I'm terrified of it. So that's the reality about the United States. America is a bully that will only mess with countries that it knows will acquiesce. It's not going to mess with some crazy-ass country with nukes. So that's the thing. And going back to this crazy song from Iran, just to further show you what I mean, we hear the shouts of the world-eating Jew. This is a very famous song in Iran called Nohe. We hear the shouts of the world-eating Jews from the throat of the Saudi king. Now, I'm pretty certain all the alt-right guys would love this. Our missiles will rain down on our enemies. Our Sigil missiles will drop in the heart of Tel Aviv. The voice of Haydar Ali will prevail from the Kaaba. Meaning we're going to take over Mecca and we're going to transform Mecca into a Shia worship site. This is the Shia flag that will be waved from the top of the world. We will soon write, Ya Haydar Karar, Imam Ali's honorific title gained after the Battle of Khaybar on the green flag of Saudi Arabia. So here we have hatred against the Jews, but we also have hatred against the Arabs. They hate the Arabs just as much as they hate the Jews, maybe even more so. But that's the bottom line, everybody. That is the bottom line. Iran is going to attack Saudi Arabia. It's very, very clear. My father talked about this decades ago. And every single year, it gets more and more obvious that this is going to be an event that we're going to see. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.
ای شهیدی که شد آینه عشق داغت آتش زده بر سینه عشق قائد لشگر انبوه خدا دست پرورده ای از روح خدا داغ این سینه پرسوز شدی مالک اشتر امروز شدی همه جا گوش به فرمان ولی پاسدار حرم بنت علی حیدر 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 بگو ببینم بیرونیا دستا بیاد بالا حیدر زینب از مرکه ها دید تو را خوش به حالت که پسندید تو را تو شدی بنده دربار حسین از غلامان علمدار حسین راز اخلاص تو بود از ادبت شهد شیرین شهادت به لبت همه مبهوت ز پرواز توییم حاج قاسم همه سرباز توییم حاج قاسم همه سرباز توییم خون تو رهبر این راه شده عمر دشمن کم و کوتاه شده روز دشمن پس از این تاریک است انتقام تو بسی نزدیک است حیدر 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 انتقام تو خروش همه است انتقامت به کف فاطمه است پشت این خون پر از حاصل تو گور خود را بکند قاتل تو گور خود را بکند قاتل تو برکت خون تو بسیار شود خیبر تازه‌ای تکرار شود جنگ ما سخت و نفسگیر شده دشمن از جان خودش سیر شده حیدر شعر رو بشنو ها بعد حیدر 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 جنگ ما سخت و نفسگیر شده